Welcome to Midnight Mule FPL. I'm Midnight Mule and this is the video for Game Week 6 where we're going to look at the popular players and what I think of them. Are they worth having or not? The reason we care about popular players is they're the ones that are going to hurt your rank if you don't own them and they do well. If there's a player that's very lowly owned and they do well, you don't need to care. It's not going to hurt your rank. So the way I've decided who the popular players are, I'm doing it around the 4 million rank, partly because that seems reasonable, but more because that's around where my rank is at the moment. And I've looked at 7,500 teams around the 4 million rank, had a look at who they've got in their team, and that determines their popularity. So anyone with over 10% ownership we look at, and anyone who's been transferred in by at least 100,000 managers for Game Week 6, we're going to look at those as well. Anyone lower owned than that, don't care about. They're not going to hurt your rank. That doesn't mean you shouldn't have them. That just means I'm not discussing it. You can just make your own mind up on those ones, I guess. And sorry this video is so late. I've been away all week. I just got back this morning and I've spent more or less all day putting this together. All right, let's get on with it. I'm going to start with a quick look at who are the popular players. So this is a chart that shows ownership levels across the x-axis and cost going up the way. So the two expensive players up here are Salah and Haaland. They're both around 55-56% ownership. At the time of making this video, Salah is slightly higher owned, around the 4 million mark. But by the time Game Week 6 starts, I expect Haaland to be higher owned. Now, ideally, it would be nice to own both Haaland and Salah, because if you don't have one of those and they do well, that's going to really hurt your rank. If you're wildcarding, it's considerably easier to have them both, and you just get cheap defenders and cheaper midfielders. If you're not wildcarding and you've only got Salah, then what a lot of managers are doing is selling Salah and a forward to get in Haaland and then the cheaper midfielders. The exception is if you've got, for example, Watkins and Wirtz, then you may be able to get in Haaland and a really cheap midfielder. So if you are getting in Haaland and he is expected to do better this game week than Salah, don't feel too bad about selling Salah. Just be aware you've got a slight exposure there. And then more popular than those two at the moment is Semenyo, and he's growing in popularity. You really want to try and own him if you can. And the most popular at the moment is still João Pedro. So those four, if any of those four do well and you don't own them, that is going to really hurt your rank. They're the only four above 50%, around 4 million at time of recording. And I have a quick look at those between about 30 and 40. We got Rangers at about 48.6, Van de Ven at 44. Those two are on their way up in popularity, and Kudos around the 38%. Those three are still going to hurt your rank quite a bit if they do well and you don't own them. And then we've got a few defenders here around the 30% mark. Senesi, he's growing in popularity. Pedro Porro's decreasing in popularity. At 5.6 million, there are cheaper defenders that are probably going to outscore him. So he's fine to have, but you shouldn't be buying him. And if you're on a wild card, you definitely shouldn't be getting him. And then we got Gahey, he's growing in popularity at 28. Electric Steve at 27 because he's cheap. And if he has to come in, that's okay. And two keepers are more popular than everyone else who's likely to play. That's Sanchez, who's on the way down, and Raya, who's on the way up for popularity. Now, looking at the actual players, we'll start with the keepers. We talked about Sanchez and Raya. If you've got a playing goalkeeper and you're not wildcarding, do not change your goalkeeper. Just stick with whoever you've got. And you hopefully got Dubravka and another keeper. If you're wildcarding, then Raya is currently the most popular one to get. He's 5.6 million, but after this game week, Arsenal have some very nice fixtures, and he's pretty safe just to keep in goal and keep playing. Sanchez, although he's currently more popular, over the next week or two, I'm expecting his popularity to wane, and it would just keep going down. And then next most popular would be Vicario. Spurs defensively, they've done quite well as far as FPL is concerned. Upcoming fixtures of Wolves, Leeds, Villa and Everton, they're all very nice. He's a perfectly good keeper to get. In a way, it doesn't matter which keeper you've got, in as much as at the moment, none of them are going to really hurt your rank if you don't own them. But it may well be Raya's going to be past 40% in 2 or 3 game weeks time. Sales is getting sold off. He was very good last season. Nottingham Forest defensively were very good. And pre-season, I think they let in 1 goal in their 5 games. But they've not kept a clean sheet yet. They're at home to Sunderland. But after that, their fixtures are no good. So many people are getting rid of Sales. If you've got Sales, I'd suggest you don't sell him unless you're wildcarding. Just because there are better things to do with your transfers. But absolutely don't go buying Sales. So Donnarumma, there's not much between him and Raya. Either one could do best. They're both currently 5.6. And if you get Donnarumma, then you're going to want to get an Arsenal defender. If you get Raya, you may want to double up on Arsenal, or you may want to get a Man City defender. Of course, you don't have to get either. But they're the 2 keepers that are probably the most popular if you're wildcarding at the moment. Pickford's a lot of fun, but he's probably not going to get as many points as Raya or Donnarumma. Kelleher and Petrovic, they're the 2 that are looking quite good for 4.5 million. But Kelleher's got Man City and Liverpool in 2 of the next 4 fixtures. So they're almost certainly not going to be clean sheets there. Whereas Petrovic's got Leeds, Fulham, Palace, Forest. Any of those could be a clean sheet. And then Pope's becoming quite popular because Newcastle have kept a lot of clean sheets. I say quite popular. His ownership's very low, but he's had more than 100,000 transfers in. So people wildcarding, a fair number are getting Pope in. And then Dubravka, you really should have Dubravka, even if you never play him, because it frees up money and he's a playing goalkeeper. For the defenders, the 2 most popular are Van de Ven and Pedro Porro. Van de Ven's still gradually getting more popular. Pedro Porro's falling. There's a reasonable chance in the next several weeks Van de Ven will score as many points or more than Porro. And as I mentioned earlier, I think Pedro Porro, there are lots of defenders that are cheaper than him that are likely to do better than him. I wouldn't be getting rid of either of these at the moment unless it was to free up money for another move I needed to do, or you're on a wild card. If you're wild carding, don't get Pedro Porro. You can get Van de Ven if you want to. He's one of the cheaper defenders that could do all right. Virgil van Dijk, he's the most popular expensive defender. Liverpool should keep clean sheets. But you could get similar points if you happen to pick the right cheap defender. Like Senesi. Senesi's done very well so far. Very high scoring. Only 4.8 million. Absolutely worth having if you can get him. Gayhe's also popular. 4.7. He's been doing well. And none of these are going to massively hurt you at the moment. But if they grow a lot in popularity and do well, then of course they will. So Gabriel, if you're wildcarding, it's worth bringing him in, knowing he probably won't get a clean sheet away to Newcastle this week. But after that, he has a nice run of fixtures. And will probably outscore Virgil van Dijk, for example, in the next few. Cucurella, he's becoming less popular. One of the reasons is 6.2 is expensive. You can get cheaper defenders. But also, he's a bit of a minutes risk. Maybe he's going to get 70 minutes every game. And even if he gets 70, he might get some clean sheets. That's 20 minutes he's not on the pitch. That's 20 minutes he can't get a goal or an assist. Whereas someone like Gabriel is going to be, or Virgil van Dijk, they're going to be getting much closer to 90 minutes a game. So much more chance of getting points. So Munoz, currently 5.6, the most expensive Palace defender. Any of the Palace defenders are worth having. So it's Munoz, Gahey we got here. There's also Richardson and Lacroix. Any of them are quite good. I don't think people are particularly buying Munoz at the moment because there are cheaper defenders that could do all right. Tarkowski, he's doing very well, 5.5 million, and he's possibly the best one around the price of 5.5 because he will get some clean sheets and he's getting a lot of the DEFCON points. And then Electric Steve, only 4 million, bench fodder, but if he ever has to come in for you, that's absolutely fine. Then the second page of defenders, none of these are going to hurt your rank if they do well, so you don't need to fear them. Konta, 4.5 million. People are quite fairly dumping Villa players at the moment. The next couple of fixtures are okay. Home to Fulham, home to Burnley. Could get a clean sheet. But after that, their fixtures really aren't good. Nobody's really buying him at the moment. Not worth buying. Not worth using a transfer to get rid of. But on a wild card, he's fine to get rid of. So Nico Williams got a goal last game week. Home to Sunderland. But after this coming game week, most Forest players are going to be getting offloaded by engaged managers because they're just not worth having. Chalobah, quite cheap, but it looks like he gets 90 minutes. So home to Brighton this game week, then he's got Liverpool, not so great. Then he's got Forest and Sunderland, 5.2 million. Seems all right. But now I think you can get 5 defenders cheaper than him that are going to be all right. But if you particularly want a Chelsea boy, he's worth having. Calafroy, he's lowly owned, 5.7, cheaper than Gabriel, but Gabriel's expected to get better minutes and more points. Absolutely wouldn't move him on. At the moment, I wouldn't get him, but if you're on a wild card, you could do for the upcoming fixtures. But if you're wild carding, you probably want 3 Arsenal players, and he may not make your top 3. Goodmanson, 4 million, nice and cheap. And if he has to come on, that's great. No problem there. People are buying Livramento because Newcastle have been good defensively, but again, very lowly owned. And at 5.1, that's all right, but you could go a little bit cheaper if you were tight for money. If money's not an issue, then Livramento's fine. Timber, again, minutes aren't as good as Gabriel nor Saliba, but Saliba's not high owned at the moment. His points aren't expected to be as good as Gabriel for most of the prediction sites, but he's all right. People would only bring him in if they're wildcarding just now. You wouldn't do that just as a transfer. Gvardiol's the highest owned Man City defender. You'd expect them to get some clean sheets for the coming game weeks. 5.8 million, that's kind of cheap compared to other Arsenal and Liverpool defenders, but because of DEFCON and the way that's playing out, there are cheaper defenders that are probably going to keep up with him or even outscore him. But he's fine to have. He's a good player. So Salah is getting sold so people can finance the Haaland move, but he's still going to be high enough owned, so he's going to hurt your rank if he does well and you don't own him. So I'd suggest if you're wildcarding and you can afford to get Haaland and Salah, that's currently the safer move. But if over the next 2 or 3 game weeks Salah is mass sold down to like less than 20%, then it'd be okay to move him on. Semenyo at only 7.7, you really should try and own him if you can, because he's going to hurt your rank if he does well. Same with Reinders, 5.7, very highly owned, worth having, and he is a good attacking player. So Kudos at 6.6 is holding quite steady. He's probably going to gradually go down in popularity though, even though the next 4 fixtures are okay. After that, the fixtures do get worse. If I had Kudos, I wouldn't be selling him. If I was wildcarding, I may get him just because he's highly owned. But if he wasn't highly owned, I wouldn't care about him at all. So Fernandes, he's just a solid pick, but he is quite expensive at 9 million. And it's if you want Salah and Fernandes and Haaland, the rest of your team is really quite cheap. But it's okay. There will be a lot of midfielders, 9 million or less, that are going to outperform Fernandes. But Fernandes has a good chance of continually getting decent points. The next 2 midfielders are both Everton. That's Grealish and Ndiaye. Most prediction sites have Ndiaye outscoring Grealish over the next few game weeks, even ignoring the Man City fixture where Grealish can't play because he's on loan. And Ndiaye is cheaper, so if you have neither of these and you particularly want one, then Ndiaye at the moment is the one to go for. But if you've got Grealish, that's fine. I wouldn't be buying Grealish if I had neither of these at the moment. I would be alright to get Ndiaye because he's growing in popularity. He seems like he's alright. He's ticking along quite nicely at the moment. So Gakpo, Ekitike is suspended for this coming game week, and it's looking quite feasible at the moment that he's still going to be getting good minutes when Isak's playing. So at 7.7, he's okay at the moment. The immediate fixtures aren't great, but from about game week 12, Liverpool's fixtures are very nice. Mbeumo, very nice player, 8.1 million. He could do well. No doubt next game week, if anyone's free hitting, he'd be on a lot of the free hit teams. If you've got him, that's fine. Chances are, if you haven't got him, you won't be trying to get him in, but he's an absolutely fine player. Caicedo, only 5.6, ticks along nicely. He's perfectly fine to have. Of the players on the page at the moment, Salah, Semenyo, Rangers, if you can get those 3 in, that's going to help protect your rank a bit. Second page in midfielders, none of these are really going to hurt your rank too bad if they do well and you don't own them. Don't buy Dewsbury Hall. He's on 4 yellow cards. If he gets another one, he's going to miss a match. And after the next 2, which is West Ham and then Crystal Palace, he's got Man City anyway. Then he's got Spurs. So the Everton fixtures aren't so good after the next two. He's fine to have. If you've got him, don't worry about him. But I would suggest you don't go buying him until he's had his 5th yellow and he's missed his match. So Phil Foden, if we knew he was starting and getting 80-ish minutes every match, he'd be absolutely brilliant. You should get him. He's a very, very good player. But Man City, Pep Roulette, there's always a chance he's going to get benched or get fewer minutes. Very good player. Absolutely worth having if you don't mind taking a risk. If you're risk averse, then it's probably best not to get him. If he gets popular, you're going to have to get him. But at the moment, it's okay to go without. But he could do very well. Gravenberch is on the list because now he's had over 100,000 managers bring him in for game week 6. And I think he's had maybe 3 attacking returns this season so far. But engaged managers and those that have got a long history in the game generally are not bringing him in because there are much safer midfielders to bring in. And he takes up a Liverpool spot. So I wouldn't recommend bringing him in. If you wanted to, he's okay. He's not going to hurt your rank though. Doku, similarly, lots of managers have been bringing him in. He's 6.5, but like Foden, you're at risk of missing out on minutes and stuff. If you buy a Man City player, unless it's Haaland or Donnarumma, you're taking a risk with minutes, basically. I definitely wouldn't go there. He is growing a bit in popularity, though. So Palmer, he's out for the next 2, maybe 3 weeks. I personally think it's worth selling him. Because if you sell him and then buy him back, say for Sunderland, even if that's going to cost you 8 points, whoever you replace him with is going to almost certainly score more than 8 points if you get a decent player. So even if it's for a hit, I think it's worth getting rid of Palmer. And presumably his price is going to go down. Statch, lots of people have been bringing him in. 5 million. He's done well so far this season. I've not made him grey for bench fodder, but he's not far from that. In most games he will be on your bench, but at least if he comes on, he'll get you 1 or 2 points at least. Saka, not worth bringing in this game week, I think, unless you're wildcarding. If you're wildcarding, then that's fine, but I wouldn't bring him in away to Newcastle. I mean, I guess if you were doing Salah and Watkins to Saka and Haaland, if somehow that worked magically with your money, that's okay. Next game week, assuming he doesn't get injured, then he's going to be a very popular player to bring in. Anthony's only 5.5. He's fine to tick along if you want a cheap midfielder who you're going to have to sometimes play. Regarding the forwards, Haaland, João Pedro and Gyökeres, they're on just about all the wildcard teams that I've seen put up online as this is my team. João Pedro and Haaland are going to hurt your rank a lot if they do well and you don't own them. Gyökeres not so much, but he will be getting brought in next week as well for Arsenal's good run of fixtures. I would be comfortable at the moment having Haaland, João Pedro and not Gyökeres. But if you want all 3, that's fine. If you're on a wild card, these 3 are the sensible 3 to get. Chris Wood is massively dropping in popularity. This is their last good fixture at home to Sunderland. And then they've got several weeks without any good fixtures. So he's going to be getting mass dumped from next game week. And up to game week 6, he has been getting dumped anyway because after game week 1, I think he's got no attacking returns. So don't go buy Watkins. Villa have been very disappointing. Watkins has been disappointing. If you've got him and you want to keep hold of him, that's okay. Home to Fulham, home to Burnley. Maybe he'll turn it around. But he's getting dumped by a lot of managers to make way for Haaland. He's fine to get rid of. If I had him, I wouldn't sell him for a -4 unless it was to get in Haaland. But I wouldn't, for example, just move Watkins onto Gyökeres this week if it was for a -4. So Richarlison, I had him down as a risky character last game week because of his minutes. Prediction sites are reckoning he might get about 70 minutes. If that's the case, I still wouldn't go buying him at 6.8 million. I'd rather have forwards that I think are going to play. But if you've got him, he's fine to have. Mateta, more expensive than Richarlison, but he's going to get much better minutes. He's going to be on penalties. Their fixtures, Liverpool, Everton, Bournemouth, Arsenal. I wouldn't be bringing him in as a normal transfer. If it was on a wild card, that's okay, but not as a general transfer. If he gets much more popular, then you might have to think about getting him in. Isak, if you're wildcarding, it's okay to get Isak because you're probably going to want him in a couple of game weeks time anyway. If you're not wildcarding, I suggest you don't bother bringing him in at all. But presumably from about game week 8, he's going to be getting good minutes and therefore good points. So Ekitike, I think it's worth selling him. So he's not playing this coming game week because he's got a suspension. And after that, presumably Isak's going to be getting better minutes than Ekitike anyway. 8.7 million, totally worth moving him on. Even for a -4, I think I would definitely sell him. And then the second page of forwards, we've got Isidore for Sunderland. He's on this list simply because over 100,000 managers have brought him in. We also have Foster and Mark Gay. So for these three, Foster's ticking along. He's fine to sit on your bench. You can even play him if you want to. He's always going to get you probably at least 2 points, sometimes a fair bit more than that. Mark Gay is only 4.3 million, and he's probably never going to get you points, even if he has to effectively come on. Isidore's 5.5, so that's 1.2 more than Gahey, but you'd never choose to play him anyway. So, of these three, if I had to have one of them and have on my bench, it would be Foster. Then, I don't know, then it'd be Mark Gahey. I just wouldn't waste the money on Isidore, but a lot of managers are getting him in. So the benching order, you've got 2 goalkeepers. One of them is probably Dubravka, so you want to play the other one. However, just in case Dubravka is not your second keeper, this is my suggested benching order. The first player I show you is the player I suggest is the one you play. So for this game week, it'd be Vicario, Donnarumma, Sales, Pickford, Sanchez, Raya, Kelleher, Petrovic, Pope, and then Dubravka. I'm now going to run through all the other players we've just looked at, apart from 6, who are the captaincy choices. So this is my suggested bench order. Of course, you do whatever you like. And this is allowing for ownership and potential points, and then a bit of gut feel, etc. So this is my preferred order who you should play. Foden, if you've got him, you play him. Saka, if you've got him, you play him. Isak, if you've got him, you play him. Chris Wood, possibly the last week you're going to have him. I mean, he's fine to have going forward, but his minutes may well get reduced as they do have other options up front. Then it'd be Semenyo, Kudos, Pedro Porro, Van de Ven, Mbeumo, Watkins, Gyökeres, Gvardiol, Virgil van Dijk, Gabriel, Tarkowski, Nico Williams, Gakpo, Grealish, Richarlison, Senesi, Mateta, Dewsbury Hall, Munoz, Cucurella, Caicedo, Chalobah, Doku, then Stach, Gravenberch, Gahey, Konza, Goodmanson, Calafiori, Livramento, Anthony, Foster, Isidore, Electric Steve, Timber, Palmer, who's not playing, Mark Gahey, who won't play, Ekitike, who's not playing. Regarding captaincy, Haaland is by far the safest choice for captaincy this game week. A lot of managers are triple captaining him. So if you have him and you don't captain him, if he does well, that's going to hurt your rank. If you don't own him and he does well, that's going to really hurt your rank. But if you don't have him or you want to captain somebody else, Salah is still a fair choice away to Palace. He could do all right, and he may well be the second most captained player anyway in the game. After that, João Pedro at home to Brighton against his old team. That could be fine. Fernandes away to Brentford. He could be doing all right. As good Ndiaye at home to West Ham. I think West Ham are probably the weakest team at the moment, so that's a good choice. Or even Rangers. So any of these is your captain, any of these is your vice captain. I wouldn't do 2 from the same club, so don't do Haaland and Rangers, just in case the game gets postponed. Something random could happen there. Other fair choices are any of the green midfielders or forwards we saw on the previous page. And there we have it, my thoughts for the popular players for game week 6. And I'm aware that I probably spent more hours preparing this than it's going to actually get watched. But that's okay, that's what I get for going away and leaving it so late. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you have a good game week 6. Thanks, bye.